What is going on, everybody? It is Jackson, Chase, and Andrew from Dinger Dudes. And today we have a guest joining us from Justin, Ayers Baseball. Justin, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join. How's your day going? And how are you feeling heading into this spring training season?
Boys, feeling great. Thank you so much for having me on. Opening day is coming up soon, even though we technically already had opening day last week.
Yeah,
The real opening day is coming up, so I'm gassed up, ready to
yeah.
talk ball, and let's get into it.
Now, I did want to ask you, speaking of like opening day and spring training, I'm sure you've been paying attention to obviously all these spring training games that have happened in the 2025 season so far. And the first topic I kind of want to bring up for this is teams showing promise in spring training. Which players and teams do you think are showing promise in this 2025 season? Justin, I want to start with you before I reach out to the Twins before they talk about their grade.
Okay, I have a team for you guys.
Okay.
And I think you're gonna like it. So I'm on the Tampa Bay Rays. They've had a great offensive spring training. I have a couple things that I think will help sway anybody that's not on the Rays bandwagon yet. So last year had a tough time hitting the baseball. I think they were second lowest OPS team as a team in baseball. It was horrible. They had a lot of guys who were hurt, coming off injuries. This year they're playing at the Yankee spring training facility. Or Yankee spring training home, Steinbrenner Field, which has the dimensions of Yankee Stadium, short porch. It's going to be great for some of those guys in the lineup. I think in the hot weather, ball's going to be flying. Guys like Brandon Lau, Josh Lowe, Junior Caminero. So I'm on the Tampa Bay Rays. I know they just lost McClanahan for a little bit in the rotation, but they got enough depth to withstand that. So I think they're ready to make some noise in 2025.
Hey, this is perfect segue. Let's keep talking about the Rays for a minute because there's an episode we did last season at the All-Star break where we all were picking a team that were kind of sitting in the middle of their divisions. We were all kind of picking a team of who we think we're going to have a second half resurgence because in the MLB there's always that team, like if you want to talk about the Nationals back in 2019, for example, that kind of hit their stride in the mid-June to early July. So we were kind of picking our teams who we think we're going to have those moments. And I actually went with the Tampa Bay Rays, and it did not pan out the way that I kind of talked about them in that episode. And I think pitching is really what struck the Rays kind of in the mid-season, especially in the bullpen. So if you're trying to convince people to hop on the Rays bandwagon, is there any positives you've seen from their pitching in spring training or maybe some obscure players that might kind of help bolster up that bullpen a little bit?
Look, I'm a Pete Fairbanks guy. He struggled at times last year, but this is a guy who throws 100 miles an hour, nasty wipeout slider. I think last year is kind of an outlier. There were some tough games, giving up homers, blown saves, whatever. So I think a bounce back year from Fairbanks. I think guys, they just tabbed Ryan Pepio as their opening day starter. I think he's going to be able to take the next step forward. He's still like 26, 27. I think he's going to have a great season. And Taj Bradley, if he gets a little bit more consistent, he showed flashes last year in the rotation. Again, all these guys are super young, so he's 24. So I think the way they develop pitching, Kyle Snyder is the best pitching coach in baseball. Don't worry about the pitching. I think the whole thing is trying to get the bats going, and I think playing at Yankee Stadium Junior will do that.
Perfect.
When I hear the Tampa Bay Rays, of course, I love spring training because you love to see like all these type of players that teams will tool around with and see what they can do. And I've just seen loads of highlights. Jackson and Andrew, I'm sure, is going to smile when I say this name.
Come on.
Chandler Simpson,
No way.
outfielder for the Rays that they've been tooling around with this spring training. And I think he just listed as like the fastest recorded baseball player I've seen on a diamond. I've seen him beat out routine ground balls, making it to first. And we kind of joke around about it. I had a little bit of a error in our fantasy draft. Jackson and I were going live on our Dinga Dudes podcast during our fantasy draft, and I was trying to explain Jackson about Chandler Simpson, and I was looking him up on the fantasy roster they had, and I didn't realize it was my time to select. So I clicked his name, and I infamously drafted Chandler Simpson. And I'm going to hold on to him on my team so I can say I have run a championship with Chandler Simpson. But, yeah, that's just a name that comes to mind because I don't know exactly how they plan to use him. I think they just, this past week just re-signed him to a minor league contract, if I'm not mistaken. But, I think, absolutely right. This season, I'm interested to see how the Rays kind of re-heal their hitting woes from last season for sure.
Yeah, I think Chandler's going to start in the minors, but I think The Athletic did an article about him where it's like he's the fastest guy they've ever seen, like 100 stolen bases in the minors or something.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
Contact and steals, it's a very interesting game that you don't really see too often. So whenever he gets called up, make your fantasy team look a little better.
I'm excited. I'm going to be the biggest fan when he gets called up. I'm going to circle that date.
He ended up dropping him.
I did drop him. Yeah. I did. I didn't want to tell him that because it sounds cooler.
I wanted to do a little continuation on the Tampa Bay Rays. There's another guy I'm super high on outside of Chandler Simpson and the inside joke we have with him. I like Curtis Mead. Curtis Mead, he's a second baseman for the Tampa Bay Rays. I'm looking at his spring training stats. I kind of saw him versus the Yankees earlier where he went I believe he went 2 for 4 with a double and a single. So, I mean, I hadn't really heard of Curtis Mead until recently. But, again, I'm looking at these stats. A .538 batting average, 1 homer, 4 RBIs, and a 1.258 OPS. So, I'm a little high on him just due to these spring training stats. But I kind of like what, I guess, Connor Norby said. These spring training stats don't really necessarily dictate how you're going to do during the major league season. But honestly, the Tampa Bay Rays, we had a lot of discussions about the American League East, and I believe that the Boston Red Sox are going to make it out of the American League East. I got it Red Sox, Orioles, Yankees, Rays, Blue Jays, kind of in that order. But that's just my personal opinion. But Curtis Mead is a guy I'm kind of looking out for. I wouldn't.
Hey Jackson, sorry, is that do you have your phone on the table? I think someone's calling you.
No, hold on. I'm trying to mute this.
No, you're fine. I can just hear it. I didn't want to interrupt you. Go ahead.
But no. But Curtis Mead's kind of a guy I'm looking out for. Would I put him on my fantasy team? No. But Curtis Mead, I like the Tampa Bay Rays system. I drafted McClanahan, and it just didn't go well for me. So
McClanahan might not miss that long, thankfully. I think it was only a tricep thing. But look, Mead is an interesting cat because we were talking about Simpson, high contact. I want to say most of Curtis Mead's hits this spring are singles. I don't think there's a lot of extra base hits in there. He's not a big power guy, so maybe he can work on that. Australian, so look, he's going to be a splitting time at DH, maybe some time at third whenever Caminero needs a day, but don't be surprised if, he takes advantage of a little opportunity and starts clicking here.
Well, I made a promise, before this episode started that I'm not going to talk about the Braves a lot, but I will talk about a team that I'm, as a Braves fan, really keeping an eye on because they're already threatening to win the NL East this year because of the offseason moves they've made at the bats and in the rotation. But the Mets may have just found their replacement for Jeff McNeil, who is going to miss the first few weeks of the MLB season, for those who don't know, and that is Brett Baty. It might be Brett Beatty. I haven't really looked at that.
Brett Beatty.
Brett Beatty. Okay, I figured that's what it was, but I wasn't too positive. But thank you, Jackson. But Brett Beatty, over the last 18 games in spring training, he has been on an absolute tear. And we're talking about guys who are just little contact hitters, but I think he's the exact opposite because he's displayed so much power at the bat. Earlier this week, he just hit a 2-run home run that was 106 coming off the bat, and he's already collected, I think, at least over 10 multiple extra base hits. Okay, Jackson, you have a question?
I have the similar confusing look on. I don't know if he's confused as well. If Justin's confused as well, because Brett Beatty hasn't really shown much promise in the MLB. There's a reason why they have Vientos there.
Yeah, but we're talking about players who showcase themselves in spring training this year. And I'm just saying, Brett Beatty, if you look over his last 18 games, I had the stats right in front of me. He has a 1.123 OPS. He has 3 home runs and 10 extra base hits in his last 18 games. And defensively, I've seen some people, mainly Braves podcasts, because I listen to some Braves podcasts, so they're always going to compare him to some Braves players, but they've been comparing him to what Orlando Arcia did on the defensive side of the plate, or the defensive side of the infield last season. And for a guy, the Mets are still kind of looking for a solid replacement for Jeff McNeil, and I think Brett might be that guy. So I'm not saying he's going to get the call immediately, but I think we definitely will see him in the Mets roster at some point this season. But Chase, I thought you had something to say, so I was going to turn to you.
Not about Beatty, no. I just have I'm not going to be This is not biased, Jackson, of course, So
That has to be said.
It has to be said. Another one of our, Andrew and I, huge Florida State fans, and I love Florida State baseball. So this past season, of course, the Braves had a huge draft class with James Tibbs going to San Francisco.
Florida State, you said the Braves.
I'm sorry. Florida State did have a huge draft class with James Tibbs going to San Francisco. Yep. But the guy I'm keeping my eye on. Obviously, he's not going to get caught up immediately, of course. But a trade that, well, of course, we saw the Cubs trade the Cubs trade for Kyle Tucker from the Astros, and included in that package was the guy that the third baseman that the Cubs drafted out of Florida State, Cam Smith, who has just absolutely tore it up in spring training. And I'm kind of wondering if this is a situation that might come back and bite Chicago, because Cam Smith so far this spring training, he's posting a 3.42 average, has I think 4 home runs, 12 RBIs, a 1.130 OPS, and he's just a guy who's developing quickly through spring training, and a guy I fully expect to fly through the minors and flying colors and get his spot with the Astros pretty quickly, and I think he could turn into a guy as we lost Jackson.
I don't know.
Well, we'll just keep it rolling. Yeah, he'll join back in a little, I'm sure. But anyways, of course. So I think that was I know Kyle Tucker, a very attractive, one of the most attractive players this past offseason. So of course, the Cubs were going to have to give the Astros a good package to get him from Houston. Of course, Cam Smith had to be involved, but they don't have Kyle Tucker for long, depending on what he decides to do after this season. So if this turns out to go for a waste and Cam Smith turns out to be a star in the league, this might be a trade we look back on and say, did the Cubs make a mistake here?
Sure.
And I'm hoping so, because I love my boy Cam Smith.
Well, I was going to say, kind of relating to that, I saw, Justin, that you made a post recently on your page about the Cubs and the Reds and the NL Central and that the whole divisional standings. I kind of want to get your take on it if they haven't seen it already. With the Cubs and Reds, honestly, I think the Cardinals win the NL Central. I think it's going to be the. I hate to say it, and I really do. I think it ultimately comes down to the pitching side of it, because both the Reds, I'm very high on Matt McClain. Matt McClain is projected to have 30-something homers this season. He's projected to have 32 homers and 80-something RBIs. Mm-hmm. Big guy. I'm high on Reese Hines, who is also projected to make the opening day. I believe he's on the opening day roster right now. And then you got Hunter Green, who did fantastic. I believe his name is Nick Martinez as well, and then Nick Lodolo, and then you still have guys that are coming up through the system. I believe he's the number 5 RHP prospect right now, and Rhett Lauder as well, and Graham Ashcraft. And so when it comes down to I guess my question for you is, what kind of sets aside? If I'm correct, you selected the Cubs to be the NL Central champions, correct? What sets the Cubs aside from the Reds?
So look, I thought it was close, and I think I even said in there I really wanted to, because I'm a Reds guy. I know a lot of Reds people. I wanted to pick them to win the division. I still think they're gonna be very good, so don't rule out a wild card berth. But I just couldn't get myself there. When you look at the way the Cubs are built, I think Kyle Tucker is huge. I just trust the way they can hit the baseball a little bit better. They have guys I'm a big Matt Shaw guy, who's their third baseman, Maryland guy. So they have 1 through 9. They have a diverse lineup. They have a heavy hitting lineup. And also the way they could pitch the baseball too, Steele, Tyone, Shota. I feel a little bit more comfortable. It's the safe pick. It's the person you take home to mom and dad, and you're this is gonna be is easy, no red flags, no face tattoos. It's gonna check out. So the Reds show up to mom and dad's house on a motorcycle. It's a little more dangerous. You're I don't know what's gonna happen. I like
the analogy here. Yeah.
I think the Cubs are straight laced. And look, the NL Central is gonna be bad. The NL Central is gonna be like the AL Central was for a while, where it's just ew, do we have to pick a winner? Could they all just be bad? And somebody's gonna win it. I think it's gonna be the Cubs.
Yeah, because I'm kind of looking at it, and I've seen a lot of sources like MLB.com, Dugout Report, guys like them, and they have the leading NL Central team most projected to be the Cubs, and they're an 85 win team. So when I'm looking at it, it's just The NL Central, I've come to terms with it as a Cardinals fan. Like after we lost Yadier Molina, Pujols, Wainwright, I knew everything was just gonna crumble and downhill. And I've interviewed previous Cardinals players, previous NL Central guys, and they said the NL Central is not what it used to be because in the Cubs you used to have guys like Aramis Ramirez, you used to have guys like Derek Lee, and then the Brewers you used to have guys like Prince Fielder, Ryan Braun. At one point, Chris Carter, who's a throwback name. I'm an immaculate grid guy. Chris Carter,
Yep.
throw him out there. So, yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat with you, and I kind of hate to say it. I think the Cubs win the NL Central. It's a 1A, 1B type thing with the Reds and the Cubs for me when I'm looking at it.
Yeah, for sure. So Justin, I guess I want to throw you a question because I was just having a conversation with a buddy of mine in a group chat that we're in, and we were kind of talking about because like looking at the teams that kind of just like had a downfall last year, but they had really rebuilt their roster this year. And you can look at the Rangers, for example, or the Angels. But I want to ask you, in your personal opinion, what's a team that you think is going to make? I know you already mentioned the Rays. So besides the Rays, a team that really had a downfall last year, but has really rebuilt their roster this offseason, and you expect them to fly into potentially a playoff spot this year.
So I've been banging the drum for the Washington Nationals for a long time.
I love y'all's core. I'm going to say it. I absolutely love the core y'all have.
Look, it's not as far-fetched as it might seem because like they've won 71 games back-to-back years, so you might look at that on paper and be like, ugh, really? But, I mean, like James Wood, Dylan Cruz in the outfield are electric. I think Abrams, if he stops gambling, will be great. Like, their pitching staff, like, they're all built like NFL dudes. Like, they're all jacked and they're all, like, I think they're going to be a sneaky, underrated, good pitching staff this year. They needed to get some more offense. They needed to get some more power. I think the two outfielders I just mentioned, I think Nate Lowe from Texas will help a little bit. They haven't had a first baseman since Zim. So don't be surprised when the Nationals are like 500 or better. So I think compared to where they were last year, I think that's a pretty big step up.
And I kind of agree with that.
Yeah.
And, I was just going to say, ever since the move over from Bryce Harper, I think the Nationals have kind of just lacked that little eye candy, kind of player. But I just want to throw this out there, the Nationals New City Connect jerseys that they released.
Oh, those
beautiful.
are gorgeous.
Beautiful. But okay, yeah, I'm just going to move on from that. James Wood, because this is another guy that's been tearing up in spring training. He's got at least 3 home runs. He's got a batting average at 320. But one thing that he's really showcased this spring training is his ability to hit opposite field, especially go deep opposite field. And I think that kind of just command at the plate is really going to bolster him to have, I think, one of the more incredible sophomore seasons in the MLB that we have seen in a long time. Because I think his immediate production, right at when he got the call up mid-season for the Nationals, he already displayed that early power, and that's just a part of his game that he's really been working on. Because this is another guy that hits hard at the bat. he had a home run that was about 110 miles off the plate not too long ago, and he's just a fun player to watch. So even as a Braves fan, I'm still kind of, I'm looking over my left shoulder when I talk about the Nationals, because I agree with you, Justin. I would not be surprised if they flirt with the wild card here this upcoming season. And they're a fun young team to watch. They really are.
Like I'm looking at that pitching rotation, and I like guys like DJ Hers. I like guys like Jake Irvin. In my opinion, Jake Irvin is a dark horse for the NL Cy Young this season. That's a strong take, and I'm kind of siding with that because
stronger than Andrews.
Stronger than
Andrews. AL Cy Young take.
He said Nathan Eovaldi was going to win the AL Cy Young.
Justin's face.
I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go on my rant because we had a video about it. But I love my pick and I'm sticking with it. I'm sticking with it.
And then you also have guys. You also have guys brought over in the Soto trade that you mentioned, like Mackenzie Gore. Mackenzie Gore has looked like, I wouldn't say fantastic this spring training, but he showed a lot of promise towards the end of last season. So again, and I had a conversation with another friend who's a Nationals fan. He says that the Nationals are a 84-85 win team that can sneak into the NL wild card. Again, they show more promise than my personal St. Louis Cardinals. And I know I said I wouldn't throw bias. This isn't being biased. This is being honest. The Nationals are a wild card team. I can see them being like the 6th seed in the National League right now.
Hey, you know what?
Irvin love.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, you know what? And I want to keep talking about National League wildcard potentials because I'm really looking at the Giants to kind of be up there with one of those teams as well. And something that I've seen just kind of like, watching spring training and listening to these interviews is what Robbie Ray is doing for the Giants right now. And, he's already a former Cy Young winner. And there's something that he has added to his arsenal that is proving to be absolutely deadly. Supposedly, him and Tyreek Skubal have been working together, and apparently it's impacted Robbie Ray's changeup in such a way that I would not be surprised if he is back in the Cy Young conversation. And then you look at his spring training numbers, he has 4 stars with a 1.26 ERA. He's got 19 strikeouts, and he's just efficient. He's really efficient, and I think he really adds a lot to a Giants rotation that's really been lacking, especially with the whole Blake Snell fiasco that turned out, in San Francisco. And I think this is kind of like a really strong core that the Giants can lean on this season. And they were kind of a middle of the road team last year that I think is kind of due for an outburst. So I think the Giants could be a potential wild card as well.
You gotta look at that. They brought in a clubhouse guy, the guy who's 42 years old, Justin Verlander, and you see young guys in that rotation like Hayden Birdsong. There's another guy by the name of Kyle Harrison. Kyle Harrison kind of had it down towards the late July, early August era, and he doesn't start on the opening day roster, but I wouldn't be surprised if he makes a resurgence. Now, I want to go into a very quick topic because we have about maybe around 10 minutes left. But Justin, I want to go to you. Players who are looking to break out, bounce back this season compared to last season.
Okay. If we're looking at bounce back players, I took this as like good at one point, had a drop. You're gonna have a comeback, have a resurgence. So I got 2 for you. I got David Bednar, the Pirates closer. Back-to-back All-Stars in 22 and 23. Last year, though, the ERA ballooned. He started the year, he wasn't healthy, which like really set him back. He only had 2 outings in the spring, and then he was like playing catch up the whole year. I think this guy's too talented to suck that hard again this year. So I know they're kind of playing it coy, like, oh, we don't know if he's gonna be the closer or not. The Yinzer David Bednar will be the Pirates closer. He will be fine. I think last year was an anomaly. And then my second guy that I got for you guys, keep an eye on Jonah Heim, Rangers catcher. He won an All-Star. He was an All-Star. He won a Gold Glove in 23 when they won the World Series. Last year, he kind of forgot how to hit and field at the same time. It was really weird. OPS fell by like 150 points. I think in this spring or like this winter, he's bulked up. He changed his swing again. I think, and also like the Rangers lineup as a whole was bad last year. So like that kind of drug everybody else's stuff down. So I think the Rangers offense will be better. I think Jonah Heim will be better. So keep an eye on Bednar and Heim.
I hate to say I'm high on Bednar. I agree with the Bednar take. I was a big fan of, and I hate to say this, a big fan of David Bednar. He kind of reminds me of like Trevor Rosenthal from the 2010s. The way he pitches, because I know he hones like a nasty slider, and that's like when I watch him pitch, it makes me think of like 2010s Trevor Rosenthal. Again, these guys, I'm a 2010s guy. I kind of have to hold on. I kind of have to hold on to that because my team isn't good anymore. But yeah, so David Bednar, I'm really high on. And then Jonah Heim as well. I drafted Jonah Heim, and I thought he was going to be fantastic. I couldn't trust it again, so I went with Austin Wells. I waited till the late rounds to get a catcher because you can get catchers late. So I don't really know, but I'm hoping Jonah Heim has a bounce back season. I don't know who has him on our teams right now, but Andrew and Chase, do y'all have bounce back candidates for this season?
I don't really know if this qualify. I mean, I think it does qualify because of how atrocious last season was. But I'm going to actually lean on Bo Bichette to kind of get back in his rhythm this upcoming season. Because, I mean, the previous 3 years, obviously, aside from last year, he led the American League in total hits. And I think last season being so injury plagued for Bo Bichette really kind of took a huge toll on his production at the plate. And we kind of saw Stephen Kwan kind of become the new Bo Bichette of the American League last year. And I think Bo Bichette's going to kind of reclaim that this season. I mean, it's really hard to tell early in spring training, he is batting over 300. We're getting a lot of glimpses with the old Bo Bichette. And I think one of the major improvements that he has made so far in spring training, as opposed to what we saw last year when he was healthy, was just his ability to track balls because his play discipline became really poor. And he had one of the higher swing rates when it came to pitches outside the strike zone. And really seeing him hold back and really locate those pitches this spring training so far. But then again, spring training numbers don't often kind of translate to the regular season like we all know as baseball fans. But I really do hope we get the old Bo Bichette back because those were some fun times for me. And Bo Bichette was a player that I drafted last year and really regretted because of the digression that he had. But I love to see Bo Bichette get back into his rhythm this season.
I'm also very high on Bo Bichette, but the player I have in mind, I'm going to do a little nod to our boy Jackson Schrader, a buddy of ours at West Georgia. I hate to tell you, but Sandy Alcantara, it's hard to believe that it was just 3 years ago that this man won the NL Cy Young. And then, of course, had the horrible injury. We saw him kind of resurge in 2023, but then late that year, he had to get Tommy John, I believe, again, if I'm not mistaken. And, now he's set back for another resurgent season. But if you look at the state of the Marlins, of course, they've got nothing going for them. They're just they're just simply trying to fit, with the new manager coming in, they're simply going to try to clean house and figure out how they can get back on track. And what that's going to include is watching Sandy Alcantara, see how he can resurge the first half of this season. And I think he's going to be the biggest move at the trade deadline, especially if he can come back and show glimpses of that Cy Young self he had just 3 years ago. I think this could be a big opportunity for Marlins fans to get rid of him, maybe get a huge package for him, but that all depends on if he can ever be the same pitcher he once was, which I do believe he can be. So I'm super excited to see if he can have another great comeback story, because 2023 was looking golden. Broke my heart. I know it broke Schrader's heart when he had to go through all that again. So, but we've seen players like this rebound from multiple injuries before, so I'm hoping he can be another one added to that list.
Do you want to know a guy who was shared in that same division who I believe will have a bounce back season? I would consider this as a bounce back season. Former Philadelphia Philly, now Milwaukee Brewer, Rhys Hoskins.
Oh.
And the reason why I say that is because Rhys Hoskins, I'm looking at the stats right here. The first half of last season, he had 18 homers and he had 18 homers and 40. He had 18 homers and 53 RBIs. After that, it just went down. It went down. 8 homers, 29 RBIs, and a 204 batting average in the second half of the season.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm looking at his
Sean Murphy average.
That's a Sean Murphy average. Yeah, I know. That's I don't know. It's terrible. But Rhys Hoskins, current spring training stats, 275 average, 6 homers, 9 RBIs. Currently is tied for first with the most homers in all of spring training. Rhys Hoskins, I'm very high on him. He's, again, you're in the ballpark of, I forgot what it's called now. It's not Miller Park anymore. It's American Family Field. Yeah. That's what it's called. I'm a 2010s guy. I forget everything post-COVID. Post-COVID goes out my brain. But Rhys Hoskins, if you're talking about a guy who can hit opposite field, we've seen it before. An American Family Field is a very hittable. It's a batter's ballpark. I've been there before. It's a batter's ballpark. Rhys Hoskins has that ability. You said James Wood has the ability to hit opposite fields. Mm-hmm. Rhys Hoskins is a guy that can do that. I'm not high on his defense. He's not like a defensive kind of guy. But Rhys Hoskins, again, I don't know why I'm siding with all my NL Central rivals today, but yeah, Rhys Hoskins.
No, you have an eye for them because I've talked a lot about the NL East. When they're in your division, you just pay more attention to them. That's just kind of how it goes.
Jackson, it is odd because Rhys Hoskins actually had a pretty good first month of baseball with the Brewers, and I was actually aiming really high towards him. But you're absolutely right. He did have that. He did fall off a cliff, especially after the All-Star break. Yep. So I'll consider that a resurgent season. He can bounce back from that. He had a strikeout problem too.
Just more consistency from Rhys Hoskins.
Now, Justin, before we let you go, I know you have to get to your fantasy baseball draft, and hopefully, good luck on that tonight. We're rooting for you for that. But I want to kind of get your season award predictions really quick before we end off this show. Can you give me your MVP, your Cy Youngs, and then your Rookie of the Years for this season, if you have them off the top of your mind?
Okay, I know the Cy Youngs. I'm a Crochet guy. I'm a Garrett Crochet for AL Cy Young. I think he's had a fantastic spring. The Red Sox, it makes me mad 'cause as an Orioles guy, like the Red Sox would be so good this year.
Man.
I like him. I like Skeens in the NL. I think he probably, if he would have had 5 more starts last year, he probably could have got it.
I agree.
MVPs, Bobby Witt Jr. in the AL, and I got Shohei again in the NL. This is the year for Bobby Witt Jr. He doesn't finish runner-up or third or whatever he finished last year. So I think this is his time. Rookies of the year is tough. I actually didn't have those off the top. We'll say Matt Shaw for the NL and AL. Somebody give me an AL. Let's go around the. Let's go around the room.
Well,
Yeah,
my AL personally is Jackson Jobe. I'm kind of liking the way he looks. And there's another guy out in Oakland who showed promise in his first game and then got injured the first game he played, Jacob Wilson.
Oh, that was really tragic.
Jacob Wilson's a guy I'm also really high on. I'm liking Lawrence. Well, Lawrence Butler won't be able to qualify.
I think he's eligible. Yeah,
he's not eligible. But that Oakland Athletics team, if we're talking about a team to look out for, I don't think they push wild card, but I think they significantly improve from what they did last season. But yeah, Jacob Wilson, I'm kind of pushing for him. But
I got a Braves question.
Yeah.
I'll take your picks, Jackson. I have no clue for AL Rookie of the Year or NL.
He has a Braves. Hey, you guys get your Braves question. He has a Braves question.
I got a Braves question.
Oh gosh, let's go.
Braves question. Let's do it.
You get to talk about Braves. All right, good.
What did you guys do to Bryce Elder?
Oh, dude, no. No, it's not what we did to Bryce Elder. It's what Bryce Elder did to us. I don't want to see him on the mound in a Braves uniform ever again. He had his chance. He had 3 chances, actually. He had his chance again this spring, and he's disgusting.
Yeah, I just saw he got optioned to the minors. He's like, he was an all-star.
And that's the crazy thing. And you really look, and what really surprises me and what really hurts me when we talk about him, especially now, you look at the Braves now, who have really been crawling at the scraps to get this 4th and 5th guy solidified in the rotation. We had to lean on Grant Holmes, which to me, Grant Holmes needs to be a bullpen guy. But then you look at Bryce Elder, he's had his opportunities for the last 3 years to find himself as a 4th or 5th guy in the rotation. But he's proven to be unreliable. He's got zero control, especially with his off-speed pitches. And I'm just with Chase. He's had his opportunity. The door's been wide open, and now I think it's shut, and we officially put the lock on it. So Bryce Elder is no more.
Which honestly, to add to your point, which makes this Ian Anderson trade hurt more for me because Ian Anderson was a guy, I thought he was going to be our savior to be this 5th guy in our rotation.
Game 3 of the World Series. Game 3 of the World Series. 75 pitches, no hits.
Well, I will say, I will give AA his credit. Ian Anderson has quite a horrible spring training. I think he has more walks than innings pitched, if I'm not mistaken. But after seeing his rookie season, how incredible he was, I thought maybe he could be that cool comeback story. But, then I got to thinking, the Braves, look at the Braves potential rotation. I think now it's looking like Chris Sale, Schwellenbach. It'd be Grant Holmes, which does suck. I would love Grant Holmes in this weak bullpen.
AJ Smith-Sawyer,
and then Ronaldo Lopez. Ronaldo Lopez, who I love Ronaldo. So I guess it's cool to see these prospects like Sawyer and Schwellenbach continue to get their time to grow. I'm high on the both of them. I know we stood away from Bryce Elder. To simply put it, Bryce Elder's time is done. He had his chance, and
he's done.
His control is awful. He's completely lost control, especially his off speed. What a curveball that used to be so beautiful, it just has no control there whatsoever. And to be honest, it's a mystery. I don't know what went wrong. I was like, but he can't figure it out either.
To be fair though, with Grant Holmes, I know he kind of struggles to get past 4 or 5 innings on because his pitch count grows so high in the first 3 innings. But Ronaldo Lopez, before he became a sole star pitcher, he had the same issue when he was a solely bullpen guy until he was forced into a starting rotation spot. And it took him a while until he was able to get that longevity on the mound. But once he found his rhythm and once he got control over his off speed, he was able to go 5 or 6 strong innings. And now he's solidified himself as a starter. So maybe Grant Holmes would kind of have that same story and make his way as a solid 4th guy in the rotation. But Yeah, no Elder. No Elder.
Okay.
The Cardinals will take Bryce Elder. We need whatever.
Good.
people
I'll
we
give
can
it to
get.
y'all.
Yeah, I don't even want anything back.
Don't give us his cash considerations, guy.
We'll
He's not
take
gonna just have him for free.
we'll take injured Steven Strasburg. We'll take anything at this point. We need something at this point because
I
they
like
take
cards.
it.
Yeah.
I'd take an injured Schallberg over Bryce Elder.
I'm a Siani guy.
I'm a big Siani guy. I think it should be Michael Siani, Lars
And then
Newbar, and then Burleson. They're
That
gonna have
Victor
Burleson.
Cruz guy breathing down his neck or whatever.
Yeah, Victor Scott. Yeah,
Scott,
Victor Scott. He kind of had a down season to the end of last season. He ended up with like the thing with the problem with the Cardinals is you got a guy like Michael McGreevy who's throwing a 1.96 ERA in spring training, but you keep a guy like Matthew Liberatore who's throwing a 5.46. I think the Cardinals are in a transitional period where you want to keep the veteran experienced guys despite how they're playing in the lineup just because you think they'll succeed. Like I remember when we acquired John Lester, Jose Quintana, guys like them at the All-Star break, and then you have guys like Jordan Walker. You need to develop him because
I love Jordan Walker.
I love Jordan Walker. He has star potential. Problem is you don't keep him in the majors long enough to experience it.
Well, I think y'all gave him that call up, kind of like what the Braves did with Nacho Alvarez when Ozzie Albies got hurt, just to kind of see what really he needs to develop, so that way he can have a, I guess, a stretched out career in the majors. So I think that's actually going to benefit Walker in the long run. The fact that he was able to see for himself what areas of his game he needs to improve on. So then when he got back down to the minors, he was able to develop on that. So I think his second go around in the majors is going to be so much better than what we saw when he first got that call. So I think that in the long run, that was going to help Jordan Walker.
Oh, I'm hoping. And I'm projecting, I think Siani, if he played the full season, if they didn't bench him or send him down for a little bit, I think he could have won a Gold Glove. That guy is magnificent in the field. He he's like Harrison Bader, woulda, shoulda, coulda. Like that's that kind of era. But Justin, before we let you go, would you like to shout out any future projects, any future interviews that you have going on at your page for people to check out?
No, just check us out, man. Justin Ayers Baseball, big on Instagram and TikTok. Appreciate you guys having me on. This was fun.
Oh, yeah.
You guys lean more into the Braves talk. You guys know your stuff.
We try. We don't want to make it all about the Braves, but when we get on our rants, we do tend to talk a lot. We can't help it though. It's just it's always engraved in here. So
it's good stuff, man. Yeah.
Thank you.
Appreciate that though. Appreciate that.
Hey, we appreciate you, Justin. This episode will be out, I believe, later around 8 p.m. tonight when I edit it all down and stuff. But Justin, good luck in your fantasy baseball draft, and hopefully you post your teams, and we'll give comments on your teams because these two guys don't know how to draft to save their lives.
Oh, hold on! I was in the championship last year. What are you talking
Lob
about?
a grenade in there. Yeah.
I was about to say, wait a minute! I was in the championship, buddy. Where were you? Yeah, that's crazy.
I've lost the past 2 seasons. I don't.
Yeah, buddy, you've eaten the hot wings twice. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. But
I like
all
it.
right.
No, this is cool, guys. Keep doing it. You
Thank you
guys
so
got
much,
something
man.
cool here.
Awesome,
Hey,
man. Well, it was an honor having you on. It really was.
Love it. All right, fellas.
Yeah, you take care. You take
Take care, guys.
All right, there we go. You can